Phillipsburg Town Council Work Session, April 3rd, 2024.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Council Vice President Paulus, would you please read the Open Public Meeting Act statement?
This meeting is called pursuant to provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting on April 3rd, 2024 was included in the list of meeting notices sent to newspapers of record and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk.
Thank you. Would everyone please rise, pledge allegiance to the
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of the community. Amen. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilman Clark?
Here.
Councilman Kennedy?
Here.
Councilman Skirbo? Council Vice President Paulus?
Here.
Council President Marino?
Here. Public discussion on agenda items. Before we start that, our inspector for the inspection fees is ill, so he won't be here. So hopefully next meeting we can get his report. Okay, any public discussion on agenda items? State your name. 3 minutes.
I want to talk about rent control. I live with rent control, and thank God, because other than that, I wouldn't be able to survive. I think everybody who rents should have rent control. I think if you live in a single home or a house that has 2 apartments, that you should at least have 5%. And anybody over that, like the complexes, should have a 3% rent control. People who don't want to rent, people who rent and don't want rent control, there has to be something fishy about it, because I don't know who wouldn't want to save some money for their own pocket. You ask people to vote for you. Now you should help the people. They helped you when you wanted their vote, and you went door to door and talked to them, and you put signs in their yards, but they helped you because you're sitting up there and they voted for you. But now the people are asking for your help. Why can't you help them and vote yes for rent control? You don't know what it's like to have a landlord that owns the complexes in the town of Phillipsburg. They got in the town, and now you will have to get them out of town, or else you won't have any renters, because they are terrible to rent from. If you vote no for rent control, all I can say is shame on you.
Hi, 4 minutes. My 3 minutes should be pretty quick. We want to speak tonight about the concept of needs. We hear from residents about the struggles that they are in, and as representing the PDA, what we're looking for is a discussion about needs assessment, using the population to determine where we can apply the right products, the right solutions. So rent control, although an alternative, is just one alternative. There are other measures that are available through other venues that are offered by the local charities that can provide relief for different affinity groups within town. What we're hoping as a PDA is that we can find those people in need, find the right solution for those folks that are affected by increased rents, and use our ability as a town to meet the need in a compassionate way that meets the needs of those property owners as well as the renters. In the current configuration, as renting units are converted to private entities, it reduces the housing stock. That housing stock reduction changes the supply and demand, and in turn increases the price of rents because of the limited supply. And eventually you'll be dealing with what PACON has from a 30 to 70% split rents to ownership. They're a bedroom community. We're not. If we were trying to go to that direction, it's going to end up affecting primarily and first those people most in need, because they're going to find that there's less opportunities to find housing that fits their particular budget. So again, just to reflect on what we're looking for is a compassionate answer that meets the needs of all participants. Anybody who's made investments in Phillipsburg know we're on a tremendously positive trajectory, and our goal from the PDA's perspective is to keep that trajectory alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. David Morissette, 5 Fairview Heights, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Rent control is on the issue, and that's what I'm here to talk about. And whether you guys do rent control or not, that'll be up to you, and you'll vote your conscience one way or the other. But I do think that you need to be frank and honest with what the effects of rent control are going to be. If you have rent control, particularly on 4 units or less in the town, what you are going to have is a significant number, I don't know the exact number, but you will have a significant number of people who own buildings in town where they're renting units, selling because they're not getting the return on their investment that they could get with being able to charge market rate rents. If you can't charge market rate rents, you're going to be better off selling your property. Now, why would I say better off selling your property? So, in the last year, there are 3 homes, 1 on Chambers Street, 2 on my street, that have been up for sale. Each of those homes has sold for over $500,000. Your average home selling in Phillipsburg as a single-family home is going for over $200,000. Many going for $250,000, $300,000. If you're an investor, you're going to sell your house if you can't keep your rents up to market value. Now, I do have a quick question, Council President, and the attorney may have to answer this. Somebody came up to the podium a while ago, and they were concerned because their rent was being, they felt it was being jacked up too high. And Attorney Wenner said that there's laws, state laws, I believe, that limit the amount that rents can be raised for a somebody in currently in an apartment. And I'm sorry, town attorney, I don't know your name.
Wade Baldwin.
Okay. Do you know anything about that?
So specifically as to what he's talking about, I don't know. I do know that there are instances in which when there aren't rent control, there are limitations in place statewide that you can't jack up the prices, but there isn't any uniform rule for that. It's more of like a case-by-case basis in court and a reasonableness standard. So this would be something that codifies a specific rule that everyone knows and can follow.
I think I remember the conversation, and maybe I'm mixing up 2 different conversations, but I thought it was said that they had to acquire an attorney and then appeal to a certain board within the state? Is that a process?
I'm not specifically
Okay.
familiar with that.
I could be mistaken, and I think I remember what you're alluding to.
Yeah, I seem to remember Attorney Wenner, in order to help out the, I don't think he was going to do any litigation, but in order to help out the residents that see me after the meeting.
Thank you, Dave. Your 3 minutes is up.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Ed, Olson Yard.
Joe Minor. I sent you all something that takes more than 3 minutes to read. I'd like to refer to that sensible way of dealing with rent control that I proposed some years ago, and I mailed to you. Anybody else want a copy, I will email you. I deny that the present rent control as used in this state as practiced in Alpha. I maybe put that down, I may have the wrong place. Is no good. It's burdensome. My proposal is something that solves the problem. We do have competing things. Section 8, well, first, Phillipsburg specifically is where the people who have been displaced move because it's still the cheapest place to go in our area. I think we're 5th in the state. Mr. Kennedy, I went over that last meeting. It is the place where the poor people live. I claim to represent the poor people who don't vote. And I do, my credentials, I've had probably more credit hours than any of you up there in economics. The major problem with rent control is that it does eliminate bait and switch. Okay, you take out the bait and switch by requiring the landlord to specify what he is going to raise the rent to in the following year. This eliminates the bait and switch problem. They've all heard this, folks. The second thing, major thing, is that Section 8 rents are too high. They're based on the state standard. The state standard for rent is way higher than Phillipsburg. We are the bottom, not the top. So it is forcing the rents to go up too much. I can't do anything about that. I don't claim I can do anything about that. As far as public housing, this is another thing that's presently used to support the bottom.
One last statement, Joe, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay. Public housing, 4-year waiting list to get into public housing. Anybody else, they've all read it. If you want to read the
Thank you, Joe.
specific techniques.
You got to stick to the 3 minutes.
Email.
So refer to everyone.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
John Pierce. What happens to the people that aren't qualified for anything? No assistance, no rent assistance, and your landlord keeps raising your rent. I hear everybody's concern up here tonight about Section 8 programs. I don't qualify for none of it. Okay, so I bring in $2,000 a month and my rent's $1,700. How do I feed my family? What do? Do I pay my rent? Do I pay the utilities? Do I pay for food? Or do I pack up and live at the river? So somewhere along the line, we have to do something. I'm not a landlord. I have a great landlord. But we have to do something. My rent come January is going up again. Yes, rents here in Phillipsburg are way too high. I live in a single apartment, okay? I don't have a yard, but you're all talking about apartment buildings. I live in a single home, attached in a row. My rent keeps going up. And I pay all my utilities and the sewer. The only thing I don't pay are the taxes. But you might as well say I pay the taxes. But you know, something's got to give. Something has to give. The rents in Phillipsburg are too high. Too high. Yeah, houses are going for $500,000, but who's got that money? Because I sure don't. But if anybody wants to loan me some, I'll take it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Just your name, please.
name's Emily Walters. I've been in Phillipsburg for quite some time. I started out as a renter here. I bought a home right before the pandemic when things were still manageable. I think this needs to be a multi-pronged approach. It can't just be one thing. I had a very good landlord, and I was very fortunate to have a very good landlord. And I think the ultimate question is, who do we want to be living in Phillipsburg? Do we want investors? Do we want people from New York City? I hear lots of complaints on the township page about different activities, but we're not doing anything to maintain the community that we already have. We're not making it easier to buy a home. We don't have any kind of assistance programs that are accessible to many people. Somebody mentioned it's 4 years to get public housing. So like, what are we doing? Are we taxing the new corporations that have come in? Are we taxing them to get money? What are we doing to help people out? Are we creating new housing? I don't see any of that, and it's very disappointing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir? Your name on it.
My name's Dave Fritz, Phillipsburg resident. I just got a question. Do you charge a fee for renting houses by landowners? What is that fee?
What are we at right now?
Registration fee?
Yeah, the registration.
$100 for the unit.
$100.
Is that a year?
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
We're, when the pandemic hit, they won't allow anybody to go into homes, so we're pretty backlogged. We're also adjusting our rental fees right now, which was supposed to be on the agenda, but our inspector is ill tonight.
All right, that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I feel like I missed a meeting here. Robin Coe. Somehow we got to an ordinance. I thought we were in a conversation state on this rental control.
We're here to listen.
What's that?
We're here to listen.
Okay. This is like not even American. What is in this thing? I don't know where it came from or who it wrote. I don't know. It almost looks like it's from another country. I would like to be involved with rewriting this if it ever comes to the fruition. But I mean, I was shocked to see an ordinance coming forward when we were in a just in a conversation state. As far as rents here, I was a landlord up until my building caught on fire. And I do feel bad. I have always owned a house. I worked, I got a deposit, and I've always owned something. And not everybody is an owner. There are lots of renters. But there are solutions. There's solutions with Northwest Cap. There's help with deposits. If you're able and someone that is willing and wanting to own a house, there are solutions in this town. There's housing shortages everywhere in the United States. Everywhere. There's nowhere you can look that there isn't a housing shortage. Do we use all our facilities that we have, and does it happen fast enough? No. You know, if it happens real fast, then it's usually garbage. If it happens slower, then nobody's happy. But there are solutions, as Bill said. There are facilities out there that can assist people with their rents. There is rental help. It is done by income for those that have problems with income. And you just need to connect them to the right places. Phillipsburg is the cheapest rent in this area. I looked everywhere locally. They're absolutely the cheapest. And it's like $850 to $2,600. I don't think $2,600 is in town. Okay? But Alpha is, so the average rate for two bedroom is $1,600. house. Alpha's $16.97, Bloomsbury $28.50, Easton $16.95, Bethlehem $19.97, Washington $16.15. We are the lowest. I'm not saying it's right, but that is what the economy and the market is bringing. So what is the solution? It's for everybody. It's not just Phillipsburg. But if you bring it down to the point where you attract everybody that is coming from outside of Phillipsburg and you're not helping the people here, you're just creating more of a market problem. So unless you have a solution where to put people, then you can decide what to charge them. I am not opposed to renters whatsoever. My rents have always been under market. Most small renters are under market. Most small landlords are willing to help people. So I don't know what the solution is, but it's certainly not in this paper right here. You will chase everybody out of here. And then nobody will have anywhere to say. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sean Donahue, 102 South Main Street. I'm a licensed realtor in New Jersey and New York, and I'm a property owner on Main Street. I own 5 buildings there. I came to Phillipsburg 5 years ago with great ambition to assist in the work that my former owner, Scott Kersey, did for the historic district. And here we are talking rent control. I have 3 units available since January 1 with no one looking that could qualify. Because I'm not going to court with tenants who can't pay. I'm not going to court with trouble. I've been through that many times, many years ago, and I think you need to understand from the investor's point of view what we're up against. I came here, bought at market price. I have a commercial loan because my buildings are in a commercial area. I am paying commercial rate for every utility. I am on a 5-year ARM, which is up next month. So my interest rate goes from 4% to probably 7, maybe 8. I have no control over that, right? Where does my renters go? I can't put my rent up. And then you're asking me for 11% tax hike. So we need to reconsider the ordinance. I don't know where Perth Amboy came from, but that's the city. It's not Phillipsburg. I didn't put my rents up on any of my tenants the entire time I came here. But from tomorrow, probably, I will be attacking on 3% immediately to all my leases because I won't be able to meet that increase. Everything goes up, guys. Everything goes up. And we all know that. So I just want you to consider that. Second thing, in my office, there's a listing in Phillipsburg for $1,200, maybe $1,250 for a 2-bedroom apartment. There were 6 people applying for that position. In Washington, a 2-bedroom for $1,800 had 70 applicants. What's the difference? There's something else going on in Phillipsburg. I also had a Japanese gentleman working for Uniqlo, 1 day away from signing a lease for me, went into the new building, his new work, and they told him, do not rent in Phillipsburg. Downtown is way too dangerous, and I lost him. So I'm going to be facing selling too. I think it needs to be reconsidered. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Christian Lovamarian. I too also moved to Phillipsburg about 5 years ago. And in that time, every year, me and my father talk about, we'll have a house eventually. We'll eventually start saving up. But every year, my rent goes up at a faster rate than my father and my pay can combine to. I am currently actually facing a problem where soon I will not have enough money for this month's rent. I have 3 younger brothers that we all have to, me and my father have to combine our pay to feed, to provide for, to pay for electricity, the house, all of that. We are not able to at this point if the rent keeps increasing. In those 5 years, it has increased by almost $300. It's pretty insane. if there was some kind of control on that to keep it from raising at an extreme rate every time the lease runs up, me and my father might eventually be able to stop renting and get out of the situation we're in and provide a better life for my brothers. Without it, though, we are doomed to continue the cycle of constantly being indebted, constantly having to worry of, do I have electricity this month or do I have food? Do I have food or do I have rent? We'll never stop.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move the meeting. Sir? Just your name, please.
Adrian Rodriguez, 403 South Main Street, where the bike shop is. So I want to say that I'm a recent arrival to Phillipsburg. I, as well as others, have, we're carrying out what we've heard that the people of Phillipsburg want to see, which is revitalization of the downtown and bringing businesses back. We're on a very strong trajectory, and apart from that, I'll echo what Robin said. My family does not come from this country, and from where they fled from, what the language is identical to what was written in those in that rent control. And I'm not new to rent controls in New Jersey. I've read through many different jurisdictions, municipalities, specifically in Hudson County, and the language is identical. So to present the points that I'm going to make. First of all, I think most people recognize that salaries for most people have not gone up at the rate that rents are going up. And it is tough for people. I think inflation affects everybody, including the property owners whose operating costs are going through the roof. We're not even talking about return. We're not talking about rate of return, fair return. We're just talking about expenses going up. In Phillipsburg, there's already a disproportionate amount of aid available. It just needs to be found and allocated to people who need help. And there's also a disproportionate amount of affordable housing already there. So this needs to be taken into consideration. Now, what we see in Hudson County is, so lessons learned from Hudson County of decades of rent control. The property values of controlled units versus free market are about, on a per unit basis, are usually around half. Okay, so it affects property value massively. So this, as we were saying, Phillipsburg has among the lowest rents and among the lowest property values already. So this will continue to hold those property values down. So that's one thing to take into account. Now, when your costs, taxes, fees go up and you're not able to increase the rent, what you see is that property owners appeal their taxes with attorneys, and they appeal them en masse all together, and they normally win. So that means that then everybody else who has a free market or anybody else who lives in the municipality is now burdened with paying more taxes, because the owners of rent-controlled properties are paying less because they just can't afford it. So it's actually unfair to the other homeowners. The units are incredibly difficult to repair. You see this from Hudson County to New York City. It's just, there's no way to get a return. And what was proposed in the rent control language basically forces landlords to improve their properties, make a loan to the property at a 0% return just to put a roof or do a boiler replacement or whatever it may be, according to the IRS Macker's depreciation rule.
We'll let you finish your sentence, just 3 minutes.
Okay, so the amount of rental units in terms of the housing stock, I think this is the biggest thing. It drops. So, so much for providing affordable housing to the constituents. In fact, what happens is that the affordable housing shrinks, and what is left in the market is actually more expensive. So, yeah, I think you guys need to take a closer look at the effects of rent control.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
town here. When I bought properties back in 2018, I had rents that barely covered the expenses. I wasn't able to do any repairs. I wasn't taking any money out. And I was just barely paying the bills. Thanks to some modest increases in rents, I'm now able to make some repairs. I'm able to put working appliances into these apartments. I still haven't taken out a dollar, but I'm able to make these repairs, make a nicer place for tenants, make a place that they're happy to go to, which, quite frankly, they weren't when I acquired the properties. So the ability to increase rents is what got me the ability to make those changes, to make a happier place, a safer place for my tenants. And now, tenants are looking forward to coming in, looking at a place. And when I show a place, people are saying, hey, this is great, this is nice, this is really well done. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a place where tenants are happy, landlords are happy that they're able to provide a safe and nice place for their tenants. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I was able to do those modest increases since 2018. With rent control, we're back to the status quo. These places are not going to get repaired. We're going to start to see places that are going to go into disrepair. Basic maintenance will be ignored. You're going to find people who are not able to comply with the local town rules. And these are important things that we need to be able to do to keep safe and nice places for tenants. But without the ability to increase some rents, we're just not going to be able to get there. One last thing, I would encourage you to take a look at the working group report that was provided in Minneapolis. They went through an extensive process. 25 people were on this working group. They had experts come in and advise them. They took a huge look at rent control in Minneapolis. And they actually surprised a lot of people, this working group, which included tenants. It included
Sir,
experts.
I'll let you finish your statement. Your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
That was called the working group report?
Yes, working group report for Minneapolis. I have a copy here, which I'm happy to provide to the folks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, they did surprise people and actually suggested that they not increase for various reasons like we talked about.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm probably the last one to go down, Carol D. As many people know, I came to town, my husband and I came to town 23 years ago. We invested greatly in this town. We put our life savings in this town. And as a result, we became landlords. We're good landlords, but all of our units are under market. Now the taxes are going to go up 11%. I'm going to be forced to sell all these properties, and my fear is that the only people that are going to buy them are slumlords, because they're the only ones that are going to be able to make it work, because they won't do any improvements. For me, I just reinvest in the properties, so any income I get from the properties, I reinvest in the properties. So, and the other thing, as a business owner, the thing that brought me to town was the development, the potential of redevelopment, and I've waited 23 years for it. It still hasn't happened, and I think this will be the final nail in the coffin if we do this. So that's my opinion. Thank you. And I just wanted to voice my opposition.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one? Okay, we're going to move on. Before I open it up to council, I'd like to make 2 statements here. Important information about your rental property. The Town of Phillipsburg records indicate that 1 or more of your rental units are required to be inspected for lead hazards as part of DCA's new law, NJAC 5:28A- lead-based paint inspections in rental dwelling units. This is a state law, not a local law. The new law states that rental units constructed prior to 1978 are required to have a dust wipe sample analysis to assess for lead hazards completed at the next tenant turnover or by July 2024 if there is no turnover. Failure to comply with the new regulation can lead to a fine up to $1,000 per week. Property owners must also complete their annual residential rental registration by May 1st, 2024. So this for the public knows what's going on from the state. Also, I was elected by the people of Phillipsburg to represent them and address any issues I identify while in office. I, as well as other elected officials, have noticed a concerning trend regarding the affordability of rental units in Phillipsburg. I don't want to see residents of this town struggling to stay in their home. Having recognized this issue, I called upon the town attorney to provide their expertise to draft a rent stabilization ordinance that is fairly applied to all applicable rental units in town. I feel this ordinance provides enough so-called relief valves so not to overburden the rental unit owners. These include hardship application for owners, capital improvement increases, and the ability to obtain fair market value for vacant units. This also includes a statutory exemption for all newly constructed or converted rental buildings for a period of almost 30 years. This will ensure that developers will still build in Phillipsburg and will not be deterred by a fear of not realizing profit on their investment. All of these are why I feel this ordinance is in the best interest of the town. With that being said, we'll open it up to Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Council President. So tonight is clearly a very important meeting. I've never seen a turnout for a work session like this in a long, long while. So it's unfortunate matters like this that bring the public out, but nonetheless, I'm glad to see public participation in the democratic process nonetheless. I've already stated, and actually let me turn this on. I've already stated my stance on rent control. I don't believe it is what Phillipsburg needs at this point. I think it'll do actually more harm for renters and homeowners alike if implemented right now. And for full transparency, I'm the only renter up here. So I do not make these decisions lightheartedly. It's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. But I do base all of this on my education, experience that I have accumulated over the years. Not too many people have the opportunity to go and do their master's. I was fortunate enough to graduate with my master's in business communication, where I've taken classes in both macro and microeconomics, financials, and other business-associated courses, where we've discussed market anomalies such as rent control. I don't see it as the benefit for the residents of Phillipsburg or even the growth of our investment in business centers here in town that is necessary. And tonight we literally heard from investors that they would sell if need be. We would lose investment. All those tenants would be displaced. Where would they go? These are the questions we need to ask. Now, we received the ordinance right here yesterday around, what did I write? 3 p.m. So I didn't have a lot of time to review, but I did get a chance to notice a lot.
Joe, let the councilman speak, please.
So I did get a chance to review as much as I could in its entirety. So rather than focusing on the ill points of rent control, which I've spent since 2019 discussing, I would like to bring up some points regarding the ordinance itself that has caught my eye and has concerned me. And tonight we have heard something very interesting. Much of this language is un-American. First off, reading through this, you see a good trend. The town of Phillipsburg here, the town of Phillipsburg this, the town of Phillipsburg this. It's clearly addressing the town of Phillipsburg specifically until you get to section 463-6, powers and duty of the Rent Stabilization Board, section B, where it specifically says, sufficient copies of the current rules and regulations shall be on file with the city clerk and coordinator for the Perth Amboy Rent Control Board. This was not written for Phillipsburg. This is the Perth Amboy Rent Control Ordinance. All they did was take Perth Amboy out and put the word Phillipsburg in, and they forgot to do it for one line. So we know that this is not for Phillipsburg, it's for Perth Amboy, which then raises another question. Can you compare Phillipsburg to Perth Amboy?
No.
That alone voids this entire thing out. And just to share some statistics regarding Perth Amboy, on why I believe it's not a case that can be compared to Phillipsburg. The population of Perth Amboy alone is 55,000 plus compared to our 15,000 plus. The median household income of Perth Amboy is around $52,000, whereas Phillipsburg is around $64,000 based off of 2022 census data. Perth Amboy renter occupation is 67%. That's nowhere near Phillipsburg, which is around, what, 47-ish percent? It's around the 50 mark. It's about almost half-half regarding homeowners and renters. You can't compare the two. So why are we using an ordinance that was meant for Perth Amboy to place it upon the business owners, renters, and homeowners of Phillipsburg? So that right there is just a major red flag for my concern right there. Problem number two, when you start talking about the rent control board, underneath the section, let's see, give me 1 second. 1 second. Here, section 463-5, creation, membership, compensation, and voting of rent stabilization board. Section B of composition terms, subsection 2. Each member shall serve without compensation, but each shall receive such expense and per diem allowance as the town council from time to time may deem appropriate. Who's paying for this? Who is paying for these members per diem, stipend, whatever you want to call it? They're being paid. Who's paying for this? Let me tell you, the taxpayer. Also, there has to be a lawyer to oversee this, because this board will also have the power to do subpoenas and other legal actions. Who is paying for all that? You've seen our 11% tax hike because we're seeing spending going up. This is just more spending and expansion of government. We can't afford this. We need to get the spending under control, and this is just creating more government bureaucracy, more jobs. So I'm sorry, that I'm also against, because where's that money coming from? Also, the hardship clause. Now, under this ordinance, if passed, landlords can't charge above 3% annual, right? So on top of an 11% tax hike, we're also capping investments at 3% annual. Now, there's a hardship clause that if they need to raise taxes, they can go before this board and be considered. In order to first be considered, expenditures have to exceed 60% of their total rental income, over 60%, for them to even be considered to raise their rent in order to pay expenditures, right? I don't know about you, but what business, what investment runs at a 60% expenditure loss for you to have to then be considered to increase your revenues? And remember, keyword here is income, rental income, not profit. So you still have to pay taxes on your income, all right? This is bad business sense. And you will push out more tenants, more renters, if you put it in, because you are forcing these investors to sell their properties. And you even heard it yourself. They're either going to stay abandoned or some slumlord's going to come in and not make any improvements. So I'm sorry, but we have to look at this as long-term, because this is going to affect Phillipsburg for the next 20, 30, 40 years down the road. Affordability is at the forefront of my mind, and unfortunately, we live in New Jersey, one of the most expensive states in the country, highest property taxes. We are experiencing a shortage of housing, but it's not just specific to Phillipsburg. It's a nationwide problem, and that's what's causing rents to go up. A shortage of housing, an increase in demand, increase in rents. Rent control only addresses the symptom, but not the overall root problem, which then causes even more problems. We need to increase the supply of housing here nationally, statewide, and locally to relieve the problem once and for all. Rent control sounds good on the surface, but it will do irreparable damage long-term, dislocate a bunch of tenants, lower the quality of life for these folks because landlords won't be able to make the repairs that they need to, and create all this bureaucracy and spending. Because at the end of the day, someone has to pay for all this. It's not free. It's physically irresponsible. And I'm sorry to be so passionate about this, but we're staring down the barrel of an 11% tax increase, a 3% investment cap, rising spending, we're looking out for y'all. Yes, y'all. And I will not apologize for
Let the
saying that.
councilman talk.
Thank you, Council President. I'll never-
Everybody up here will get an opportunity, no councilman will tear into another one by making that statement. Everyone understand that?
Thank you, Council President.
You're
I respect that. But again, it's a sensitive issue. But if we truly want to fix the issue, we cannot make wrong decisions. We need to go at this full force. We need to be smart about this. And we need to fully utilize state resources for renters assistance. There are programs out there, one of which is the Anchor program. I've never heard anyone truly talk about it. I'm constantly on social media connecting with renters, letting them know that it's available. Yes.
Joe, no exception, sorry.
So
let them talk.
Thank you. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm not voting for this. It's going to do too much damage. But I do believe that there are there are ways we can alleviate the problem, the symptoms of the major problem, while also addressing the major economic problem that does not punish homeowners, homeowners, businesses, or even renters in the long term. So thank you.
Councilman Kennedy.
I just want to make a statement real quick. So first, just so everyone's clear, because there's talking about voting and people seeing an ordinance, there's no action being taken tonight. So there's no ordinance up for first reading, no action being taken. Second, regarding the Perth Amboy language. So I did draft this. This is not the Perth Amboy rent control. You can look at Perth Amboy's code section and see it's not even close to what this is. When drafting this, I know I'm not the smartest person. No one is the smartest person. You can always learn from other people. I looked at ordinances all over the state where they are, saw what was good, saw what would work best in Phillipsburg, and that's what I did. I apologize. There's a Scrivener's error. I left that in there, but I felt that they had the best makeup for the board, and that's the language that I used. But this is in no way the Perth Amboy rent control ordinance, just so you guys know.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Kennedy?
Okay, first of all, before I even get to this sample ordinance, had I not made a phone call to the business administrator last Friday, this agenda would not have been put on the town website. Okay, so we keep hearing about transparency. That should have been on the town website Friday. And a copy of this ordinance, which we got, as Councilman Clark said, we got it yesterday. This should have been attached to it. So all the public had a chance to look at it. So as people said that came up here today, this is a scary document, and I hope we're not basing rent control on this at all. There are a couple of things I wanted to point out. Well, as it was said before, Perth Amboy is a city of 55,000 people. We have 15,000. So, okay. And then what we looked at the last work session was from Lopakon. Again, hardly comparable to Phillipsburg. So, a couple of issues I have on this. There's one section here that says a complete rent roll for the immediate preceding year will be submitted to the rent leveling board by January 10th of each following year. Said rent rolls will include the rental status of all units and as to all occupied units, the amount being charged for that unit. The failure to timely submit such rent roll will be considered a violation of this chapter and punishable in accordance with its provisions. Now, what town employees are going to ensure compliance with this? Are we going to need yet more hires? Because I think we will. Adding again to our tax rolls. Okay. Violations and penalties. This is a very scary one. Any person, firm, or corporation who shall violate any of the provisions of this chapter, including but not limited to material misstatements contained in any of the notices required herein, shall, upon conviction, be punished by a fine not to exceed $500 or by imprisonment in the county jail or in any place provided by the municipality for the detention of prisoners, or both such fine and imprisonment, and each violation of any of the provisions of this chapter, and each day there is a violation shall be deemed and taken to a separate and distinct offense, and violations affecting more than one leasehold shall be considered separate violations. Imprisonment. If you're considering investing in Phillipsburg and you read something like this, are you going to come here or are you going to go elsewhere? Again, I'm not in favor of rent control. I never have been. I feel for the people who are having a hard time of it now, but I think this is a big no for Phillipsburg, and I think it would very, very much set us back.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Vice President Pauls?
I'm in support of rent control because, as my mother stated, it saved her from substantial increases when the property that she lives in was sold and there were new owners. They did try to raise the rent substantially. She would have had no place to go had it not been for rent control. We've listened for years of renters in Phillipsburg coming to the podium and, pleading for help because 9 times out of 10, the landlord is an absentee landlord. They're what we call slumlords. They're not taking care of the properties, but they're raising the rents because one of the issues is Section 8 because the majority of the rent is paid by Section 8, not the person that's living there. That's part of the problem. But I think, what's happening here is only parts of this ordinance is being pulled out. And, the purpose of a work session is to discuss what's good, what's bad, and work on a compromise on what will work here. As far as any assistance, we've heard it from the residents here. They've gone to get assistance and they get turned down. I'm not saying there isn't assistance available, but I don't think there's the assistance that you're trying to put out there. It's not available to the people that are living here. If you read this, there are clauses in there that if you do substantial improvements, you can get more than the 2.5–3% increases. It's not set in stone. You just have to go through the procedures. And again, like I've stated before, there are a lot of the landlords in this town that own the property, but they have no clue what is going on in the properties, and that is the problem. You can go on several different websites and look up properties, and it'll say whether it's an absentee landlord or not. And part of our problem in this town is we don't even know what properties are rentals because they're not registered. So the inspections aren't being done. The inspections department is understaffed, has been understaffed. We're aware of that, and we're working on getting it properly staffed. And yes, it does increase salaries, but in order for us to succeed and move forward, this is what has to be done. Again, I'm in favor of it. And if there's landlords that are raising the rents $100, $200, $300, as we've heard from people, all you have to do is produce the documentation substantiating that increase. We're not saying that it isn't going to be attainable. You just have to show that there's a reason for it, not just because, you want the extra money or whatever. So I don't understand my fellow council members when they object to an 11% tax increase because for the last several years, the taxes remained flat and our health insurance with the state went up 27% in 2022, or 2023. 2024, they went up 7%, and next year we're looking at double digits. And the taxes were held flat using one-time revenue. Had those taxes been increased 1–2% over the last several years, we would not be looking at this increase of 11%. Everybody knows that $600,000 bond payment was not made. That $600,000 bond payment increased what interest is due on that payment. So when you look at all those factors that you know, you're looking at an 11%. It's not because that's what we wanted to do. It's what had to be done to remain fiscally responsible. So you're against that of a homeowner's or a property owner's taxes being increased, but you cannot support a renter to provide them some type of protection from a substantial amount of increase per month. Not per year, because the average increase for the taxes is, what do we say, $150, $200 per year. And we're looking at renters coming here telling us that their rent is going up $100, $200, $300 per month. That anchor program is not going to help a renter to pay that additional expense per month. I'm done.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief, and I'll tell you why I'm supporting it. Number one, I brought in 4 properties to the inspection department. So look them up, tell me which ones are renters. 3 out of the 4. So now, did they pay their $100 fee? Were they inspected? No. That's only a part. Second part, some businesses on South Main Street last year saw a 20% increase, and then again this year another 20%. Thirdly, and when I talk to the people involved. I'm not going to read somebody else's ideas. I'll look at them, I'll read them, but I want to talk to the people. The biggest thing going on now, and I checked with the postal authorities, and I'll give you an example, and I'll take my time. Let's say, I'm not going to name streets so we don't offend anybody. 10th Street, they'll have 1A, 2B, and 3C. The mailing goes to the supervisors, oh, I got 1A, 2A, I don't have no 3C, or 2B, I don't have no 3C. The reason why they do that, they get inspected by the number of deliveries and the number of stops. So one stop has 3 mailboxes, it's 3 stops, or 1 stop, 3 deliveries. This is happening not only in Phillipsburg, it's happening all over. Now, why are they putting these boxes up there? Is it a criminal act? Is it an established an address that you live in the town of Phillipsburg for 24 hours and that you can qualify for public housing? I know that to be a fact because I asked the gentleman. This is in addition to a lot of other things that I can spend all night. I showed fellow council members last year, because Councilwoman Paulus wasn't here, different articles. They're probably outdated now. So I've read articles that have people saying, Bill, with the PDA, we read them. You can't plan for today in a town of Phillipsburg that's got over 50% rentals. Everything you read about it, I never see it compared to a town like ours. We're well over 50% rentals. We know for a fact that there's a lot of properties in Phillipsburg that are rentals that are not registered. We know that to be factual. Okay? Now you ask why your services go up. So if you've got a few of these places that are not registered, you don't know who lives there, and and I love kids, they have a school-aged child. Okay, they're not on the lease, they're on nothing, but guess where they're going? To the school. So if you have 50 of them, or if you have another 20 that are homeless, and what the law is, I had 12 years on the school board, we're going to educate them, and we're going to feed them. Okay? All this factor comes into a poor town, and it's unique. When the mayor presented his budget, we had that, all the municipalities in Warren County, where was the cheapest to go? Look, I played both sides. I want the investor to make money, and I want the tenant to be able to afford to it. You hear about all these programs that are available. There are. Try to get some help. That's another thing. And really, we're not going to live in the perfect world. We're not going to live in the perfect town. Now I'll give you an example. And I believe this wholly. We're going to have investors come into Phillipsburg. We're going to be like Easton and the others where they see a block of houses that have been over 200-300 years old. They're going to develop, they're going to rebuild, and then we're going to see some more tax money coming up. It just takes time. We can't put the Band-Aid like we've always done. And I'm going to irritate people. I know that. I understand it. But I didn't run for office to sit up here to not to tell the truth. And that's what I envision is going to happen. I think the opposite of those people. I think people are going to want to come in here. We've got one of the best educational systems in the state of New Jersey, if not the area. We got the best early child. We got good things, and we got things happening. So I am going to support it for those various reasons, and I firmly believe that we're on the right road. And thank you, Councilor, for that thing. Mayor, would you like to say anything before we close?
Yeah, sure. I took quite a few notes on what everybody had to say. I think it's important to look back at the history and how we got here. I think I heard a lot about free market, fair market. We don't have a free market. Section 8 sets our market. There's no free market. We already have a government established market in the town. So anything that's based on free market or what a market designates, I don't think is wholly accurate. I do think, when people say, I'll sell, and somebody will come in and not make improvements, they're going to make improvements. We had 20 years of non-enforcement. We've had our enforcement inspections guy come in, tell you that our fees are 20 years outdated. They're 20 years outdated because nobody cared for 20 years. Nobody made people follow the rules. We have these rules on the books. They just weren't followed. And I'll blame the previous administrations. They didn't do their job. The budget, most of the hires are for that inspections department. It is woefully understaffed for the amount of rentals we have in town. The first year, I'll be honest, is about correction. Upgrading our ordinances, our rates, getting the proper personnel, trained personnel. If there is a rent leveling board, those per diem costs, like when we go to the League of Municipalities and take classes like all council people have, like I have in the past, it's to educate those people, to make sure they're making informed decisions. It's not a pay. It's not so they can go to a baseball field luncheon and have MPP pay for their lunch. It's those type of expenses. So we have the proper people in place. What else do I have here? So I do believe whether you sell or not, or somebody comes in, the properties will get fixed up. And the ordinances will be enforced at some point in time when we do get the proper fixes in place. And it's going to take a bit because there is decades worth of irresponsibility and non-enforcement that has to be corrected. What else do we have? Provability. I think one of the main issues that I've heard was every time somebody leaves and new people coming to town and rents going up, I think that's part of the problem too. We're not providing stability. One thing that makes a community and puts pride back in the community is stability. The ability to keep the same people in your area, whether it's through home ownership or non-rental turnover. When people have pride in their community, when they get to know their neighbors, when they visit small businesses, not your big box Walmarts and things like that, they take more pride. They're less likely to vandalize on the way home from school. Their parents are less likely to, ignore the behavior of maybe their kids who are going to move in 6 months anyway because they couldn't pay their rent and they just move on to the next place. So I do think stability is one of the things that Phillipsburg has lacked for a long, long time. And maybe it's because of the affordable housing rules and laws and Section 8, but we're coming up with a lot of complaints here saying that it's going to affect us for the worst and what people expected over the last 2 decades. You're asking for the same reaction from the past 2 decades that got you nowhere. You're complaining about where we are today based on the actions of the past, I'd say 2 or 3 decades, and we haven't gotten to where we wanted to be following those rules, laws, and practices. So if you want to keep following those practices, we're just going to stay exactly where we're at. That's my opinion on it. I do have more opinions. I'm looking forward to reading. Anybody who has anything that they want me to read, feel free to email me, the working group report. I'll definitely take a look at that. I'm looking for any type of insight, any type of ideas. The more we can work with everyone, the better, but you're never going to make anyone happy. If you try to make everyone happy all the time, you're never going to get anything done. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we'll now open it up to public petitions. Just state your name. You can talk for 3 minutes.
Joe Meidner. Real simple. I mailed all of you a plan. It has lower overheads. It takes care of the people at the bottom. It does not overcome the problem of the backlog and the state subsidizing. That problem remains. Actually, it solves every problem that I've heard complained. Please read my proposal again. If that thing had been attached to the first time I presented my plan, I would have been against it. It's the same as the one that was presented. I think I first proposed this in 2019. That present thing that you're looking at is a piece of trash and should not be passed. It's no good. I gave you one that solved all those old problems. Read the dumb thing. Anybody wants to read a proposal that will meet Bill's standard too, I believe. I'll mail, it's an email. Just come over, give me your email address, and I will email it to you. It's part of the public record, by the way.
Bill Benz, I appreciate your time. The only question I'd ask the council is if they could lay out for us a timeline of where you expect to see in the next following meetings for opportunities where we could engage.
Anyone else?
Nicole Walters, I would like the council to consider that the blended approach might be more effective. Maybe a time cap on these resolutions to stop the issue for renters and give them some breathing room while this market evens out. I don't think any renter is against working with businesses. We all want business in Phillipsburg because we know that's what's going to make the community flourish. I just challenge the committee to really try to work across the aisle with both sides of the argument here and be creative.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Joan Pierce, I would like to see in the proposal of the agenda, but I didn't get to see it. The 11%, we didn't vote on it, us taxpayers. You did, some of you, not all. But back to what I stated before, you are blaming everybody. I didn't get to see the proposal. You are all arguing over it. We need to come to a solution and work together instead of name gaming. Doesn't matter. We're all up here for the same thing. Businesses are still going to come here. Right now, we don't have no rent control, and how many businesses have left? Quite a few. Businesses you don't even know about have left, come. They're still going to come here no matter if we have rent control or not. So we do need it here, but I hope we can work on this resolution somehow, but I'd like a copy of it so I can look at it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
There was a, David Morissette, 5 Riverview Heights, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. there was a comment here about thinking about history. And the town did have an offer for $1.2 million in regards to, affordable housing. Former Councilman Jim Shelley said, "It is a new day in Phillipsburg." Former Councilman David DeGirolamo said to Michael Perucci, "We are putting we are putting your future in our hands." An article in 2006 in the Morning Call, we're talking about a housing shortage. An article in 2006 in the Morning Call talks about the property, which is the Perone Howard Street property, having 449 units, 300 townhomes. Michael Perucci talks about, in that article, 1,000 units on 166 acres along the river. But just on the Perone Howard Street property, you were talking about 450 units, and the plan was that was going to bring in a population that would help to redevelop Phillipsburg, bring in money. But the previous councils have decided to make that industrial. A former councilman, Councilman Harry Wyant, made a statement before the properties on Main Street were brought in to the equation so he could still comment, that this will ruin Phillipsburg by making the Howard Street property industrial. Having those residential areas down there on the Perone Howard Street property would have been a huge boon to the town of Phillipsburg. Making it industrial goes against and hurts everything you're talking about in terms of affordability for the town of Phillipsburg. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Anyone else? Can you see none? Oops. Go ahead. I'm just fast. Can't help it.
Sean Donahue, 102 South Main Street. My question is there going to be any exemptions to any buildings in Phillipsburg? Because I heard that the Elks building will be exempt from it. The Elks building? Does anyone else know the proper name of it? The one across from Carroll?
75 South Main Street.
75 South Main.
Right.
If that's
It's
going to be
the old
exempt.
Elks building, correct. Was there, if someone made that promise, it didn't come from this council.
Okay, I'm just asking. Yeah.
Right, no problem. Anything else?
Somebody else.
Robin Coe. I'm sorry to critique this thing here. The section here about creation, membership, compensation, voting, and rental stabilization board. Number one, under composition terms, it states that there'll be 5 members of this board appointed by the town council. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that this should be looked at as a community board, and it should involve businesses, landlords, residents, and not appointees by council. It'll become political appointments, and it will not be looked at in a fashion where everybody's included. So I just think that that should definitely be looked at. And most of this thing really needs a good tweak. And again, I'm offering to help. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So this is a work session, so if you guys want to talk to me and give me input, I can make adjustments, and when it gets introduced, it can reflect whatever you guys want.
Sure. Council agreeable to that? Just send me your suggestions, what you want to change, and I'll send them. Councilman Clark?
Yeah.
Councilman Kennedy? Okay, I think we're all in agreement with that. Anything else before we close out the meeting? You get your last shot.
Can we all send?
What?
Can we?
Yeah, you can send me, Joe. I read everything you send me. Anything anybody wants to send me. But you can't come to my house, though. Oh, no. I read that news, boy. Nobody coming there. You don't know if they're coming with a toy gun or a real gun in today's world. Okay. Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Everybody drive home safely.